The sound you just heard wasn't just a microphone hitting the canvas, it was the sound of an era being suffocated in front of a live audience. Look at the screen. Look at Paul Heyman's eyes bulging, bloodshot, and filled with a terror we haven't seen in 40 years of sports entertainment. The wise man, the architect of extreme, the special counsel to the greatest dynasties this business has ever known, is currently curled in a fetal position while the two men sworn to uphold the law in the WWE are taking turns caving in his ribs. This isn't a wrestling match. This isn't a worked segment. This is a public execution of the most powerful mind in the industry. By the time this video ends, you are going to see a side of Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce that will make you question everything you know about authority in this company. We are witnessing the brutal, bloody end of the Heyman influence, and the way it's happening is something you will never, ever be able to unsee. Before we break down the most violent night in the history of Monday Night Raw, I want to speak to you from the heart. Here at SLAMZONE, we are more than just a channel, we are a family of die-hard fans who live for the goosebumps and the heartbreak of this beautiful, chaotic business. When moments like this happen, it reminds us why we fell in love with wrestling in the first place. It's raw, it's real, and it's unpredictable. If you've ever sat on the edge of your seat with your heart racing, then you belong here with us. Please, take a moment to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join the family. Your support means everything to us, and it's the reason we can keep bringing you these deep dives into the soul of the WWE. We're in this together, through every high and every shocking low. The atmosphere tonight in the arena was vibrating with a different kind of energy. You could feel it in the air, a heavy, humid tension that usually precedes a disaster. The ring was set for what we thought was a standard contract signing, or perhaps another one of Paul Heyman's long-winded proclamations about the dominance of the bloodline. Heyman walked out alone, no Solo Sikoa by his side, no Roman Reigns to protect him. He looked fragile, yet he carried that same smug, untouchable aura that has protected him for decades. He stood in the center of the ring, clutching the microphone with those trembling, manicured hands. He started to speak, his voice rasping through the PA system, mocking the fans, mocking the authority figures who he claimed were nothing more than errand boys for the board of directors. He was leaning into it, spitting his words with a venom that only Paul Heyman can conjure. But then, the music stopped. No, the music didn't just stop, the entire production went silent. Nick Aldis emerged from the left. Adam Pearce emerged from the right. They didn't have their usual suits on. They were in work clothes, sleeves rolled up, tactical boots, expressions that looked like they had been carved out of granite. They didn't wait for an introduction. They didn't play to the cameras. They walked with a synchronized, predatory intent that sent a chill through every person in the front row. As they stepped through the ropes, Heyman's demeanor shifted instantly. The smugness evaporated. He started backpedaling, his heels catching on the canvas, his voice jumping an octave as he tried to talk his way out of the corner. "Gentlemen, please, this is a workplace. I am a protected asset," he shrieked. But Nick Aldis didn't say a word. He just closed the distance. The first strike was a deafening slap to the face, not a theatrical wrestling punch, but a wide, open-handed strike from Aldis that sent Heyman's glasses flying into the third row. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The crowd went from a roar to a stunned, collective gasp. You could see the red welt forming on Heyman's cheek instantly. He fell to his knees, clutching his face, looking up in disbelief. And that's when Adam Pearce stepped in. Pearce grabbed Heyman by the scruff of his expensive suit jacket and hauled him up. There was no mercy in Pearce's eyes, only years of suppressed rage from being manipulated, lied to, and threatened by the wise man. Pearce delivered a knee to the midsection that sounded like a shovel hitting a bag of wet sand. Heyman doubled over, the air leaving his lungs in a sharp, pathetic wheeze. You could feel the energy in the building shifting from excitement to genuine concern. This wasn't sports entertainment anymore. This was two men who had been pushed to their breaking point, deciding that the only way to deal with a parasite was to crush it. Aldis and Pearce began a systematic dismantling. It was rhythmic. It was cold. Aldis would land a European uppercut that snapped Heyman's head back, and as the old man stumbled into the ropes, Pearce would be there to catch him with a short-arm clothesline that leveled him. Heyman was a ragdoll. His tie was undone, his shirt was torn, and his face was a mask of sweat and pure, unadulterated agony. Near falls? There were no near falls here because there was no referee. There was only the sound of the ring mat groaning under the weight of a man being beaten into the dirt. Heyman tried to crawl toward the ropes, his fingers scraping against the canvas, desperation etched into every line of his face. He reached out for the official at ringside, begging for help, but the referees just stood there. They didn't move. They had been told to stay back. The locker room was under fire, and the GMs were the ones holding the matches. The backstory here is what makes this so emotional. Think about what these two men have endured. For 2 years, Paul Heyman has made their lives a living hell. He has used legal loopholes to ruin their shows, he has insulted their families, and he has treated the WWE like his own personal playground. Nick Aldis, a man of dignity and tradition, and Adam Pearce, a man who worked his way up from the indies to the office, had finally seen enough. They weren't just attacking a manager, they were attacking the personification of everything that had been wrong with the power structure for years. "Is this what you wanted, Paul?" Aldis growled, his voice picked up by a stray microphone on the mat. He grabbed Heyman by the hair, forcing him to look at the crowd. "You wanted extreme? You wanted a war? Well, look at the casualties." Heyman tried to spit at him, a last-ditch effort of defiance, but Pierce caught him with a devastating boot to the side of the head. The impact was sickening. Heyman went limp for a second, his head lolling to the side. The crowd was a sea of noise. Some were cheering the downfall of the villain, but others were dead silent, watching in horror as a legend was being physically broken. Every time Heyman tried to rise, they knocked him back down. It was a cycle of violence that felt like it would never end. You could see the sweat spraying off Aldis's forehead as he delivered strike after strike. This wasn't a quick attack, it was a 10-minute-long beatdown that felt like an eternity. I have to pause here, because my heart is actually pounding just thinking about the visuals of this night. If you're feeling the intensity of this moment, please, let's keep this conversation going. Hit that like button, subscribe to SLAMZONE, and join the family for more intense wrestling breakdowns every week. We are witnessing history, and I want you right here with us as it unfolds. As the beatdown continued, the tension in the arena reached a fever pitch. We all expected someone to come out. Where was the bloodline? Where was the protection? But the ramp remained empty. The isolation of Paul Heyman was the most shocking part of the entire ordeal. He was truly, finally alone. Then came the moment that changed everything. The moment that took this from a beating to a legendary twist. Nick Aldis went under the ring. He didn't pull out a chair. He didn't pull out a kendo stick. He pulled out a pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters and a length of steel chain. The crowd let out a low, rumbling ooh that turned into a roar of anticipation. What were they going to do? Adam Pearce took the chain and began wrapping it around the ring post. They weren't just attacking him, they were trapping him. They handcuffed Heyman's wrists to the bottom rope, stretching him out like a man on a rack. The wise man was pinned, vulnerable, and completely at their mercy. Aldis stood over him, holding the bolt cutters like a scepter. He looked at the camera, then at the terrified face of Paul Heyman. "You've spent 40 years cutting the throats of everyone in this business," Paul Aldis said, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. "You've manipulated the board. You've manipulated the champions. But you can't manipulate a man who has nothing left to lose." Pearce stepped forward, holding a legal document, the very contract Heyman had been bragging about all night. Without a word, Pearce ripped it into shreds and stuffed the pieces into Heyman's mouth. It was a gesture of pure, visceral hatred. The twist, however, was just beginning. Just as Aldis raised the bolt cutters, seemingly ready to do something unthinkable to the ring ropes, or worse, the lights in the arena didn't just flicker, they died. Absolute darkness. A silence fell over the 20,000 people in attendance that was so heavy it felt physical. You could hear the breathing of the men in the ring. You could hear the distant hum of the air conditioning. And then, a single spotlight hit the entrance ramp. But it wasn't a wrestler. It wasn't a returning legend. It was a woman. The silhouette was unmistakable. The posture, the power, the sheer presence. As she stepped into the light, the arena exploded in a way I haven't heard since the Attitude Era. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated shock that made the beating we just witnessed feel like the opening act. While the GMS were distracted by the arrival on the ramp, the unexpected moment occurred in the ring. A figure in a black hoodie slid under the ropes from the opposite side. With lightning speed, this person delivered a double superkick to Aldis and Pearce simultaneously. The GMS, caught completely off guard, crumpled to the mat. The figure didn't stop there. They grabbed the bolt cutters and snapped the handcuffs, freeing Heyman. But they didn't help him up. Instead, the figure stood over the broken body of the wise man and whispered something in his ear. Heyman's face, which had been filled with terror, suddenly shifted. A small, bloody smile crept across his lips. The figure pulled back the hood. It was a face no one expected to see in this context. It was someone who had been fired months ago. Someone who had a personal vendetta against both Aldis and Pearce. The attack on Paul Heyman wasn't just a random act of violence by the GMS, it was a trap. A trap designed to draw out the ultimate power player in the WWE. As the show went off the air, the ring was a scene of chaos. Aldis and Pearce were down, Heyman was laughing through the blood, and the new alliance was standing tall over the wreckage of the Authority. What a moment. This is where legends are made. We came here thinking we were seeing the end of Paul Heyman, but we might have just seen the birth of something far more dangerous. The GMS thought they were cleaning house, but they just invited the devil back into the building. I am still shaking from the adrenaline of that final sequence. The pacing, the brutality, the sheer storytelling. This is why we love this business. This is why we are fans for life. Thank you for being part of this breakdown with me. This was one of the most intense scripts I've ever had to write, and I'm so glad I got to share it with the SLAMZONE family. We are moving into a new world now, a world where the lines between the good guys and the bad guys have been completely erased in a sea of blood and betrayal. Before you head out to process everything we just saw, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to SLAMZONE, and join the family for more intense wrestling breakdowns every week. Your comments are the lifeblood of this channel. Tell me, who was under that hood? Was it who I think it was? And are Aldis and Pierce going to survive the fallout of their own actions? The energy is high, the stakes are even higher, and the WWE will never be the same again. This is SLAMZONE, signing off for now. Keep your eyes on the ring, because the real war has only just begun. We'll see you in the next one.